ones are a W and an N. Like if you look at it, that's kind of what it looks like, right? If you reflect those, that one looks like an M, of course. That one looks like a backwards N. I don't really have a good name for that one, but those are your four main types. W, N, M, and backwards N. You know, whatever you want to call that. So there's three things that you have to find to then do your graph. Zeros, that means solve for x's. All day today, that's factoring. All day tomorrow, that's synthetic. Multiplicity means if you have a repeated answer, you have to bounce off that dot. Remember we talked about that yesterday, about repeated answers. It changes the way the graph looks at that place. And behaviors, that's what's happening on the right, what's happening on the left. That will not be up during your test. And then the y-intercept, of course. All right, so I'm going to do one of each type of what you're going to kind of see here quick. And we always just start by finding the zeros. That means solve. Today, factor. So when I look at this one, it's a 4-piece. I have to do grouping. Okay? I'm hoping my parentheses match. I'm going to go further by dots. I'm going kind of quickly there because most of you are solid at that. And there's the three answers I was expecting because it had a power of 3. So that one took grouping followed by dots. Some of them take, unfoil followed by whatever. Tomorrow's will be synthetic division instead of factoring, okay? All of those go on the x-axis. So we've got a 1, a 2, and a -2. The y-intercept is always what's called the constant, or the number that doesn't have an x by it in your original problem, and that is on the y-axis. The y-intercept is always the number without an x. No math to do there. The end behaviors then, you go back to your original problem, look for the highest degree. So our degree is 3, which is odd. Our leading coefficient, the number in front of that, it's invisible, it's a 1, that's positive. So then we say, as x goes to the right, what's my graph gonna do? And as x goes to the left, what's my graph gonna do? Well, every time that I have positive odd, the right is up and the left is down. Every time you have something positive, the right is up. Every time you have odd, they're opposite. That's the way to remember it. Memorize it. Okay, so what that means is that on the far right, we're going to go up. So I'm looking at the dots I have placed, and I need to go to the one on the far right and go up. And how long you make that or how diagonal you make that, it's all flexible. Not going to take off points either way. So if yours looks like this or if yours looks like this, any of those are all fine. Not that. Okay, something like that. And on the farthest left dot, I need to go down. So something like that. Again, how long you make it or how diagonal you make it, that's all flexible. So then you're going to start just connecting the dots. And keeping in mind, none of these answers are repeated, so none of them are going to be a bounce off. So that means I'm just going to go straight through every dot. So I'm going through this purple dot, up to the blue. I'm going through this purple dot, and I'm going to go through that purple dot. I'm not changing directions or bouncing off any of those. And what I do not know is how low to make that loop. You actually need some calculus to be able to find a absolute minimum or relative minimum on polynomials. So we just don't have that mathematics. And so it's just going to be flexible. So I'm going to go like, I could go here or I could have gone here, or however low you want to make that loop, that's flexible. Every time we make these, it's called a sketch for that reason. There's options where you could like figure out, so this is 1 and this is 2, you could put 1.5 in for all x's and figure out how low that part goes, but you're never going to know if that's the lowest. Maybe it goes lower here. Maybe it goes a little lower in here. Maybe it goes lower at 2.1. Or maybe it goes lower at 1.9. And we're never going to plug in every possible number, right? That would be impossible. There is an infinite amount of numbers in there. And so that we're just sketching. And we're just trying to get like what the shape looks like. Okay. This one, kind of harder to tell, but it's an N. If you kind of like, you know, look at just that middle part, it does look like an N. So that's the idea. And again, some of these, you know, if this you have lower, if this you have lower, none of that's going to be points off or anything, okay? We literally can't figure that out with our, till 2 years from now when you're in calc, okay? All right, we're always going to start by finding those x's. So this one's a trinomial, no number in front, that means unfoil. So you're finding what multiplies up to 36, that adds up to negative 13. And then going ahead and finding all your x's. And placing them on the x-axis. The y-intercept, it's extremely common for the y-intercept to be either a really large or a really small number that goes off the graph. Clearly, I'm not expecting you to sit there and like go like this all the way up to 36. Usually what you'll see on my paper is just like a dot up here and I write 36. You just need to know that it's above that. That's all you need to know. How far above it? We're sketching. We're not being super precise. Clearly, we can't be. So that's what you'll see on my paper, and there's a ton of them. To make the x's work out nice, often the y has to be high or low above the graph, okay? We have even, positive, okay? So as x goes to the right, as x goes to the left, positive, even, they are both up. So that means on my far right dot, I'm going up, and on my far left dot, I'm going up. And I still don't have any bounces, so I'm just going to go through all these dots. I don't know how low to make this loop, so I'm just estimating. I am going to go up to this blue dot, and I'm going to go back through the purple and loop down. And if your two lower loops are way lower than mine, if your two arrows are higher than mine, any of that's acceptable. It should look like a W. That's what it should look like. Questions so far? Tell me if I'm going too fast. Okay. We're going to GCF negative 1x squared. Right on out. And then you can just unfoil. Remember, when you have an x via a GCF, it's 0. When you have an x squared, it's 2 zeros. Normally it'd be like plus or minus 0 because it was squared, but that's not a thing. So just list this x squared as 2 zeros in your answers. I'm also reminding myself that that's going to be a bounce because there's 2 of the same answer. So I'm keeping that in the back of my mind for when I go to connect the dots, that I'm going to bounce off the 0 and not go straight through it. Anytime you have the answer there twice. Okay? Go ahead and put those on the x-axis. What's our y-intercept? 0, good. So this had some placeholders. Y-intercept is always the one without any x's by it. That has to be from your original problem. So don't get confused and look here. It has to be from the original typed scenario. And we have negative, even. Negative, even always both go down. Okay, so on the far right dot, I'm going down, and on the far left dot, my arrow is down. I'm keeping in mind that I'm going to bounce off the 0. So what that looks like is I'm going through here. Don't know how high to make this loop, just guessing. But at the 0, I turn around. Don't go through that. It should look like an M. And if your loops are higher than mine, doesn't matter. If your arrows are lower than mine, doesn't matter. But you have to bounce off the 0. Okay? Does that make sense? With the bounce? Okay. And sometimes, if you forget that there was a bounce, and you start connecting these, and you go down here, you would quickly realize that your arrow would be going the wrong way if you tried to complete that without a bounce, right? If you tried to make it an N-ish shape. Okay, last one. I'm going to, I'm definitely taking a -1 out because we have a leading negative. That changes all signs. And then I'm just going to ignore that -1 when I go to do grouping. Just get that out of there, so. And then I just do grouping without that. So since that -1 didn't have an X with it, it doesn't provide an answer. Here's the answers. 4, 1, and -1. Y-intercept of -4. That's right here. And then our last scenario is negative, odd. Negative, odd goes down on the right and up on the left. Odd is always opposite. So on the far right, down, and on the far left, up. And again, how curvy or diagonal or straight or long you make those is completely flexible. I don't have any bounces, so I'm just going to start connecting the dots through this to the blue, through this, however high I want to make it, and through this. And that's your backwards N type. All right. Any questions?